Ni hao.
Konnichiwa.
Shalom.
Ciao.
Bonjour.
Namaste.
Jumbo.
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. This is Reading with Your Kids. We're beaming out to you in the entire planet from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. My friends, I am a firm believer that families that read together grow together. Every time we sit down to share a story, we're building stronger bonds, sparking creativity and planting seeds of kindness in young hearts. We would love for you to help us spread the word about Reading with Your Kids, and you can do that by telling all of your family and friends about the show. Tell your kids' teachers if they're still in school. Tell your kids' summer camp counselors if they're in camp already, and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeart Rap, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Amazon Music, CastBox, wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really excited. We'll be welcoming back one of my favorite guests. Tim Wright is here to celebrate Book 5 of the Adventures of Toby Baxter series, Revenge of the Riverhome Rutabagas. And later in the show, Jane Lumen will be here to celebrate Monkey Mae. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Join us once again from the great state of Arizona. Our guest is here today to celebrate book number 5 in the Adventures of Toby Baxter series, Revenge of the Riverhome Rutabagas. Please welcome back to the show, Tim Wright. Tim, how are you, my friend?
It's so good to be back, Jed. One of my favorite podcasts, so I'm glad to be back with you.
I'm delighted to hear you say that, Tim. I really love talking to you about Toby Baxter. What an incredible world you've created.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's been kind of fun, and I guess for me it's been really surprising because I don't always go into these books with it outlined. I just sit down and write, and most of the time it will take me down paths, and I'll just keep going and say, wow, I didn't remember writing that. That's pretty cool. This one was a little tougher. It took me a while to get there because the idea was not mine to begin with. And
really?
Yeah. So we have a running gag. It actually started with my dad years ago. Whenever we would ask him what's for dinner, he'd always say, we're going to have fried rutabagas. And so I passed that on to my grandkids, and my grandson, he said, what's book 5 about? I said, I'm not sure yet. He said, well, you should make it about rutabagas. And so I did a play on words with rutabagas, rooted it, so to speak, in roots and anger and carnage and joy and laughter. And it took a little while, but we got there, and I'm pleased with it.
Well, that's fantastic. I have some news to share with you, Tim. You asked me before we hit record if the Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read review had been posted yet. And I answered you honestly, it has not been posted, but it has been written. And I'm delighted to say that book number 5 is like the first 4 books, all been named Reading with Kids Certified Great Reads.
Excellent.
One of the paragraphs, I love this, it's talking about the book. It says, what truly elevates this book is its emotional core. Beneath the action and the humor is a meaningful message about guarding our hearts against bitterness and hopelessness. The reoccurring compass themes throughout the series are especially powerful, and in this adventure, the focus on hope gives young readers a memorable framework for facing life's challenges. Congratulations, my friend.
Wow, you said it really well. Good. That means it worked.
Well, I think it's super important that we give our kids hope, especially nowadays. I'm fortunate that I have, I'm not performing for kids every day. I'm not in front of kids, but I do have young people in my life. And you talk to some kids in college and, a lot of them don't have a lot of hope. There's a lot of worry, and of course we're hearing about kids suffering from anxiety. I don't know about you, Tim. I never heard the word anxiety when I was a kid, never mind having a friend who was diagnosed with it.
Right. Yeah, and I think, not only that, and of course we know all the research now tells us the kind of impact that overuse of screens is having on our kids, anxiety, body image, sort of almost a hopelessness can come from that. And of course, being in their bubbles where they're gathering information, but it's all a really small slice of information rather than expanding their curiosity. And we're just living in a culture right now that is so angry. Yeah. And now we know that all the algorithms on social media are built on anger. The angrier the post, the more eyeballs you'll get on it. And of course, then you want eyeballs, so you're going to write angry stuff and you respond with anger. And I wanted to deal with that for kids in middle school, just to say there is a different way of engaging with the world, and you can engage even a difficult world with joy, with hope, with curiosity and wonder, critical thinking. Now, you don't want to tell kids that's what the book's about, and that's why it's in a story. It sort of captures them by surprise, right? Comes at them sideways rather than right in the front of their noggin. So that was kind of the context, and ultimately what this book did, where it ended up taking me, is it's the start of the final books. So there's going to be 7 books total. And book 5 ended up being sort of that fulcrum book that will create the arc through book 6 and then into book 7. So the last 2 words on the compass will connect back to this one on hope. And so the storyline each book has sort of been self-contained. They still are in a sense, but now books 5, 6, and 7 will have an overarching feel to them as I wrap up the series.
Yeah. Remind us who Toby Baxter is, please.
Yeah, so Toby Baxter turned 13 in the series in the first book. And essentially, this is a rite of passage for Toby that takes place over the span of a year. So all 7 books will take place in the course of a year. And Toby doesn't like reading books, fairly typical for 13-year-old boys, but finds himself in the first book, invited into a magical land called Riverhome, where, in essence, although he doesn't really know it, he's a part of a story. He's a part of a book, and which is kind of the irony that gets played out over the course of the series. And he, in his adventures in Riverhome, where he's called upon to be a hero, he's always given a compass to guide him, and each compass focuses on a different character quality. So the first one is sort of the overarching hero. What does it mean to be a hero? Then what does it mean to be good? What does it mean to be wise? What does it mean to love? Where does hope come in? And then we'll have a couple more words. So each compass guides him through this character quality as he faces challenges in Riverhome to defeat whatever it is that he has to defeat at the time, from stinky trolls to Sofa, a snake who practices deceit and lies, and she becomes particularly a major character in book 3 and then in the last 3 books.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when we first had you on, I think it might have been the second, we were talking a lot about initiations.
Yes.
And the fact that kids these days don't have that sense of initiation that a lot of indigenous folks have, that a lot of cultures had throughout history. And, you know, as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about this, you know, we're hearing stories about 25 and 30-year-olds still living at home because they can't get a job or they can't afford an apartment. It's really tough being a young person these days.
It is, and we have lost really a crucial component in raising our children, and that component is some sort of rite of passage, a period of training where we essentially train our boys to be good men, we train our girls to be good women. It was far more boys back in history than girls, because girls have a monthly rite of passage they go through that alerts them that something different's coming. But it's possible to be a 30 or 40-year-old man and still be a boy in a man's body, right, if you haven't been trained in how to be a man. And I think because of social media and phones, that has become the great equalizer, and it's just as true now for girls. And what happens is, if we don't have, say, in our church, a confirmation program or a bar mitzvah or some sort of family ritual where we celebrate turning 13 or 16 or 21, kids, just their brains will crave something to help them grow up. And where they're growing up now is on social media. And so in some ways, it used to be the car was sort of the one rite of passage we all had, right? And you would take a test, you'd get training, you'd have mentorship, you'd practice for a while, and then you have your final test, and then suddenly you're no longer a passenger, you're a driver. So you went through a process, usually lasts a year. Kids aren't driving like they used to.
Yeah.
And the rite of passage now seems to be the handing of an iPhone to a child. And, of course, we want to think that we're putting on all kinds of safeguards for them. They get through those safeguards, and they're being introduced to an adult world far too early. They're being introduced to fake images, AI, and that this book in particular, The Revenge of the Riverhome Rutabagas, deals with AI stuff. It deals with social media stuff. Those are the sort of the gauntlets that Toby has to face this time around, and it's sort of like almost like a Facebook thing he's got to face, and an AI thing, and to just sort of help kids see that these things, they can be very positive, but they can also be major distractions in life. Yeah. And when we're distracted, we lose hope.
Yeah, yeah. That's what, one of the things that we've been trying to stress, and probably not as often lately, is this thing that we give our kids, this little rectangle that they can carry around in their pocket. It's amazing because it can do what you and I never even imagined.
That's right.
To do. It can create a video and it can send it around the world in the blink of an eye. And, I know as a parent, it was like exciting. Oh, my kids now have access to all this information. And we don't remember that, now the world has access to our kid.
That's right. That's right.
And that's something we really need to remember.
Yeah. And I think what I wanted to do, we can raise all kinds of alarms. And for those parents who are interested, Jonathan Haidt wrote a book called The Anxious Generation, which is really excellent for those parents who kind of need some scientific evidence to back this up. What I wanted to do is not poo-poo or say bad things about phones or social media. What I did want to do through a story was sort of alert kids in a hopefully humorous way. There may be some things they want to be aware of. And if anything else, to be able to, for parents and their kids to talk about those things that distract us from hope, distract us from joy, distract us from being in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really, for me, in this book, what I wanted to tackle was one of the themes was the distractions that take us away from life. And then, is there a different way of relating to the world rather than through anger and outrage and vitriol all the time? And I think if we can help our kids begin to learn those lessons early, maybe they'll grow into more compassionate adults than what we're kind of seeing today in the world around us.
Yeah, I really, really hope so. And I believe, and I've had some conversations with my friends, but again, I'm almost 100, so what do we know? But I think there's, there are people who are angry on both sides of the political fence.
Of course.
And they're super angry. But I think there's more people in the middle who are like, I believe some of the stuff you think on Team A, and I believe some of the stuff that you believe on Team B, but unless I agree with everything, you're going to hate me, so I'm just going to sit here and shut my mouth.
Yeah, yeah. And, of course, that can make those in the middle angry.
Right.
Because you just feel like, okay, I've got something to say and no one's going to listen.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that anger tends to come from fringe agitators.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it does come on social media. And I just think if we, as teachers, grandparents, parents, coaches, could teach kids how to access the world and interact with the world with energy, of course, with passion, of course. When things are wrong, they should be righted, justice. But there is an anger that can be used for purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's an anger that can be used for destruction.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing a lot of is the anger that's used for destruction rather than anger used for purpose.
Right, right. I think another thing we need to help our kids understand is that a lot of the things that they're seeing on social media that are making them angry, they're not real people.
No,
They're bots and
that's
AI.
right. Yeah. In fact, my grandson, he's 15. He's in ninth grade, just finished ninth grade.
Uh-huh.
And I pick him up from school most days because his mom and dad are working. And they had a really interesting conversation about AI.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just talking, how is our generation going to be able to discern what the truth is?
Mm.
And so I thought, now that's a great discussion. So that is going to show up in book 6 of Toby's adventure. Because where book 5 is about anger, book 6 is sort of about deceit.
Uh-huh.
And then book 7 will kind of pull all of it together with truth and goodness and so on. But, it is an interesting world that our kids are growing up in where it's going to be really tough to discern. In fact, when I was telling you off air, I switched mobile carriers, and the guy who was helping me got off the phone. He said, I think I was just talking to an AI, and I wasn't real crazy about it.
Yeah.
That's a world you and I couldn't ever even have imagined when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the reality now. Our kids are growing up in that world.
Yep.
And, how they're going to navigate it, I think in many ways will be up to us and the values we pour into them.
Well, I think that's true throughout history.
Yes.
It's been our job as parents to instill values into our kids, whether they're religious values or, civic values of civic society and sharing and standing up for each other and contributing to the community. One of the things that does concern me is I think there are a lot of parents. My beautiful wife started noticing this as a teacher. A lot of parents are checking out.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's not my job to help my kid with homework. That's your job. And it's like, nah, we're the parent. It's our job is, we're our kids' first and most important teacher.
Yeah, and it's always interesting, isn't it, to sort of watch how generations sort of parent the way they didn't feel like they were parented.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have these generations where they felt they were overparented, and so then they underparent, then the kids who are underparented want to overparent. And regardless, the responsibility of parents, the great sacred joy that we have as parents is to raise our kids to be loving, caring, compassionate, wise, curious, filled with wonder, to be good people in a world that's oftentimes kind of broken and raw and needs good people.
Yeah.
And that means being engaged in their lives. It doesn't mean that we have to have our noses into everything, because our kids have to learn to grow and make their own decisions. But I do think we want to be involved and to raise kids that, someday someone walks by us and says, man, you really raised a fine young man.
Yeah.
That daughter of yours, she's really something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard that for both my kids. So thank you for reminding me. That was nice when I heard that.
That's just good parenting.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to know we can do one or two things right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And such is the challenge, of course, for young parents today with, they're facing some challenges. We faced challenges they didn't. They're facing challenges that we didn't. And they're busy. I know that. And kids are far busier in school than they've ever been. And we're running from this sporting event to that. And sometimes it's just a matter of taking a breath as a family and saying, let's regroup and let's slow life down a little bit and enjoy each other and enjoy the life that we have.
Yeah. One of the things that we celebrate here a lot on the podcast is intergenerational friendships. And I think it's my grandmother was one of my best buddies growing up. We've had lots of authors who are grandparents who've written books about the relationship they have with their grandkids. It sounds like you have a great friendship with your grandson, and that he's inspired you with this book and kind of inspiring the next book. Does he know he could probably ask for some credit in the?
Well, so all 5 of my grandkids are major characters in the series. And I do have a really good relationship with all 5 of my grandkids. I'm really fortunate; they all live about 2 miles from me. And the grandson I was talking about, Judah, he and I have been doing some long walks together. We've been doing 10Ks. We just did a half marathon a couple months ago. We're going to do a couple more coming up. So we get to spend some time out walking together. I have a granddaughter who just turned 17, and she's going to be off to college next year, and one of them's in football, and the other 2 are a little young yet to be knowing what they want to do with their lives. They're both about 10, 11. We'll just say this is just between us.
Okay. There's
a new hierarchy that comes when you're a grandparent, and it's grandkids, dogs, and kids. And it's just the way it's been since the creation of the world. And, man, we love our grandkids, and they have been so special. Kind of changed our lives, changed my life.
Yeah.
To be a grandpa, it slowed me down a bit. It warmed me up a bit. And it's a little different than raising kids, because you're so busy doing your job and trying to figure it out.
Yep.
So it's a great delight.
Yeah. Well, we haven't been blessed with grandkids yet, but we do have a couple of wonderful grand dogs.
There you go.
We
So the hierarchy is the dogs and then the kids.
The dogs and then the kids. Absolutely. Yes. My daughter's just sold her home. She's moving. And all my wife wants to do is like, do we need to take care of the dog? We can, the dog's going to be the way. Just bring it down.
Ain't that the truth?
So do we have a title for book 6 yet?
Yeah, it's called Lost in River Home. And so at the cliffhanger, I'm not giving anything away. At the cliffhanger, we don't know where Toby ends up. And so that becomes sort of the mystery for book 6. And I'm really pleased with where he ends up. And then of course finding his way back to River Home, and then finding himself in the midst of a new big compelling quest that will then bleed into the last book, which tentatively right now is called The Sword of River Home, and the sword has been a major symbol throughout the entire series. So this is the first time now where I kind of have the end game in mind.
Okay.
And so I'm writing toward a purpose now, because I got to finish it. I can't just let things hang all the time. So It's a little bittersweet. Book 6 is written, first manuscript.
Okay.
And then I want to get book 7 written and make sure those two books line up before I get them out. So I'll probably sometime early next year, early if I can, get the next one.
Right.
But Rutabagas is just out. It's only been out a couple months.
Right. And does it, as a pantser, you told me that you don't really outline, you just kind of go by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
Does it scare you when you leave a cliffhanger? Or are you like going, boy, I hope I can pick this up and make a good story?
Well, the cliffhangers I've written before give me a little leeway to just do whatever.
Okay.
But this one, I had the cliffhanger. I didn't know where he was going to end up. So that's kind of the joy of writing for me, is the sort of the surprises that come with the writing and where the characters take me. And for people who don't write, that may seem kind of odd, that characters take you somewhere, or the writing just takes you to places you didn't think you'd go. Or what do you mean you don't remember writing that? Well, you just are in the moment. Mm-hmm. And I have tentatively written the last part of book 7. I've written the ending.
Okay.
Not quite where I want it to be, but I had to sort of know the ending so I know how to get there. So that's the first time I had the ending in mind on a book. And I've got a cliffhanger already in the end of book 6. Haven't quite figured out where the cliff is going to end hanging when book 7 starts, but I'm getting close.
It is hard to explain to someone being in that moment. Mm-hmm. I remember it's very vivid. There have been many times when I was performing where I just had inspiration.
Yes.
You're not always aware of it.
Yep.
There was one day we had been invited to perform at our church for the reunion of the kids who had graduated from the youth program, and they were coming back from college and everything. And it was the 8th anniversary of the program. And I think the priest really didn't know what I did. He just heard these things. He goes, well, it's kind of like celebrating a birthday. We got a clown. We got a clown come in and do. And at that time, my daughter was performing with me a lot, and I'm in front of these college kids, and I just went off. And my daughter's on stage with me in the middle of something that we're doing all the time, but I'm, and out and out of space, and she's doing a stage whisper, Poppy, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know, baby. Just trust me. It ain't me. In the church, I'm like, the Holy Spirit came down. He's in charge. So let's go with it. And we did, and it was a blast. And, it really is wonderful when the spirit or the muse or whatever you want to call it comes in, and you're just a tool, and you're just kind of sitting back and watching your hand write or type. Or
that's
whatever.
right. Yeah. And of course, when the spirit of the muse disappears for a while, and you just,
that's a bummer. Okay,
here I am now. How do I get out of this? And that's happened quite a bit with this book, where I started over a couple times. Just no, it doesn't quite feel right. It's a little heavier than I wanted it to be, so I had to go back and lighten it up because I didn't want it too heavy. And when you're talking about anger, it's going to be a little heavier, so I had to find ways to just lighten the mood a bit so that kids wouldn't get bogged down in some of the heaviness of it.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the benefits of doing drafts.
That's right. Yeah.
The first one, you're going to get all the anger out on this one, put it on the page, and it's, I don't feel that angry anymore.
And I'm so glad we do it on computers now versus longhand.
Yes. Yes. Do you remember when you had to turn in a paper and you couldn't just scratch things out? I think I have memories of typing something, and at the last sentence before that, you're going to change papers and you make a mistake and you got to go back to the...
Yep. Thank goodness for whiteout.
There you go. There you go.
Oh,
well,
my.
Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the Adventures of Toby Baxter, Revenge of the Riverhome Rutabagas, and all 5 of your books.
Yeah, so they can go to timwrightbooks.com. That's TIMWRIGHT, timwrightbooks.com. And then all the links are there to Amazon. The books are all on Amazon. Books 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, The Adventures of Toby Baxter.
Awesome. And if you go to our blog, our website, readingwithyourkids.com, you can read our entire review for book number 5. You actually can find all the reviews. All 5 of Tim's books have been named Certified Great Read. So congratulations again,
Thank
Tim.
you.
Thanks so much for being back on Reading with Your Kids.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Afrera Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com, and use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I call that a pretty magical way to start your day. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Ramble keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to rambleofficeanywhere.com, all one word, rambleofficeanywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, rambleofficeanywhere.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from the great state of Oklahoma, where she's keeping her fingers crossed a tornado doesn't come through her property while we're recording. Our guest is here today to celebrate her brand new picture book. It's called Monkey Mae, Noble and Pierce's Farm of Strength. Please welcome to the show, Jane Lumen. Jane, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Wonderful. Happy to have you on. Hoping that we don't have a tornado warning. We'll keep our fingers crossed for you. And we'll say,
I hope so too.
Yeah. So tell us about Monkey Mae, Noble, and Pierce in this farm of strength.
So Monkey Mae, Percy, and Noble are our real dogs in our real life. Monkey is sitting here on my lap, actually. She wanted to see what was going on. But it is to help children learn about differences, whether that be autism, a scar another child has, just acceptance and understanding and inclusion, and helping open conversations for parents or teachers to have those continued conversations with children and help them to accept others and notice differences, because they truly just make us unique.
Yeah. Yeah. So you introduced me to Monkey Mae. Monkey is a Yorkshire Terrier?
She is.
Uh-huh.
And She is absolutely my heart dog. She's full of sass and she's silly and loving. And then Percy's kind of our live wire. She's also a Yorkie. I say that she's kind of just all over the place a million miles a minute, and she doesn't stop until she passes out asleep. And then my dear friend Aggie Nevin, she owns Noble, and Noble is a little white Bichon, and he is just the most compassionate, loving dog ever. And so the three together tell these stories to children to help them understand through the eyes and voices of an animal.
Uh-huh. Wow. Now, what was it that, was it something that you noticed the dogs doing that inspired this story?
So I actually am a mother of special needs children.
Uh-huh.
And so watching them throughout their lives just not be included or accepted for who they are, as a parent, that makes it extremely hard. And we want to do anything that we can to help others, maybe who don't understand how to open questions or ask about their differences, to include them. And so that's where the story really came from. My oldest, Ryan, he has a seizure disorder, so he's always been really gravitated to animals and animals to him. Uh-huh. So I thought, really, let's write this story and include it from the animals, and it just kind of took off. And I've gotten a lot of really good feedback. How in the back of the book, I even have some activity pages, and it helps the parents or teachers or whomever, the children, to write or draw something that tells them, what they can do to keep those conversations open. And there's some coloring pages and things. And I've had some pretty good feedback from some preschools that work with special needs children, how they can print these and the children can color, and it causes conversations to be had. And that's ideally what I was looking for.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in 1989, I created a disabilities awareness video called Melt Down the Walls to Separate. And the video was kind of the report that we gave to the state. I was working at a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities, kids who were 10, 11, 12 years old, who couldn't walk, talk, feed themselves. They were very profoundly challenged. And our job was to give them opportunities to go out and develop relationships with, quote unquote, typical kids. And right. I think the school, which was located as part of a hospital, I think they hired me because I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And I think the school was like, this idea of inclusion was just starting to take root. And they weren't big fans of it. And I think they said, well, let's apply for this grant, and we'll kind of prove them wrong that, this is a crazy idea and these kids need to be in a hospital. Lo and behold, it was a tremendous success. So much so that hospital school closed within 2 years of us finishing the project and putting the video out. But the kids were integrated back into their home school systems. And the reason I bring it up is that the kids, we went to the closest public school, closest to the hospital. And it just happened to be the school with the public school with the worst of everything. The most kids from homes of substance abuse, and most kids with, one or more parents in prison, all that kind of stuff. These kids, when they were introduced to my kids, fell in love. And we had zero problems. It was a complete success. And I'm really bummed out that we still have to talk about this 36 years later.
Yeah, it's tough. I think for me, being a parent of children with special needs, I find it both the most rewarding and also some of the saddest moments. And just wanting to see your children accepted like the so-called normal children. Well, what says that that child is not normal? Just because they might have a speech impediment, or maybe they have a brace on their leg. For instance, Ryan, he has a severe seizure disability. So he could be talking and then go into a seizure, and people used to call him a chicken head, because he'd bob his head. And all he would say to me in kindergarten is, Mom, just tell him I'm not a chicken head. Tell him I'm just Ryan. And so that really seeded deep in me. And I thought, what can I do? What can I do to help other children understand that it's okay to be different, and that's what causes us all to be unique.
Yeah.
And these are special abilities. That's one thing we don't call them disabilities in my house. We call them abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really truly does help. I have a good friend whose grandson was just diagnosed with autism. So he's actually in this book. He's nonverbal. And sometimes I wish people could just see the world through the abilities that is around, like how do they see the world? And I think that if it's hard sometimes in society to think, well, they're not normal, they have a limp, and what's that going to look like for me to be hanging out with that person? It's hard for some people to look past what they can see, but I mean, there's so many things that people don't see. What about somebody who's deaf just sitting in front of them? You wouldn't know right away. And, so I just think that it opens conversations that need to be had. And sometimes as parents, we don't really know how to navigate those hard conversations.
Mm-hmm.
But children are very resilient, and they understand. And if they can read it through a book and see it, like this horse has a scar, or Ruddy doesn't talk, he's blowing dandelions, then they can relate that to somebody else in their life. And then those questions open, and it helps adults learn too, because sometimes we struggle as adults.
I'm curious, the story that you told about your son and what they were calling him, I'm amazed that a teacher didn't sit down and talk with those kids. Even when he was coming into the school, just say, hey, this is Ryan, and sometimes he has this thing they're called seizures. It's nothing. It might look scary at first. It's nothing to be scared of, and he's different, just like you have blonde hair and you wear glasses over there, and you're not as fast as this guy over here.
Right. I think to go back to what you said for, 36 years ago, and Ryan's going to be 30 this year. So years ago, I don't think that really everybody knows how to react or what to say. Mm-hmm. And, I've tried to, in this specific book, I've tried to make it easy Percy's asking questions to Monkey and Noble about these animals that are different.
Yep.
And it opens a dialogue so that children can be aware. But honestly, I don't think that even adults don't have all the tools sometimes.
Sure.
And
yeah.
So as much as I would like to see that have happened, it didn't. And I don't really blame that teacher. I just kind of think maybe they'd never been around somebody with an ability like that. But I do wish that they had conversations, but throughout his schooling years, it got better.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. I thought it was a more contemporary story. So that makes me feel better. It's not like it was last year, which
no, it wasn't last year.
Horrific. Boy, I know, from your website that, you have a day job. You are a breeder of Yorkshire Terriers.
I am.
That must be pretty cool.
It is very cool, although I will say that there's no poop fairy. She is I. So, when you've got a whole bunch of them, there's a whole bunch of mess. But it's very rewarding. And I love what I do.
That's great. That's great. My mom, so I grew up in the city. I grew up in Boston in what we call a three-decker, wooden 3-family home, one on top of the other. And so we had 2 bedrooms, and I had 2 siblings and my mom and dad. And for some reason, my mom decided she wanted to have a Saint Bernard. And we got the Saint Bernard, and Saint Bernard was great. Sherry was wonderful. And then my mom said, I'm going to breed Saint Bernards. There's a purebred Saint Bernard, and we're going to breed it. And so she's doing some research, and she's like, yeah, but they usually have 3 or 4 puppies. Big deal. We get the room. Well, Sherry was extraordinary, and she had 13.
Oh, my
puppies.
word.
And my mom had 0 experience selling anything. So we're in our little neighborhood, and she's thinking she's going to get big bucks for these puppies, and they grow fast. They grow, and 14, one full grown, and then growing puppies in that little apartment. That was an interesting year. And,
was that the first and last time she did that?
One and done. One and done. And it was funny because we're in this inner city neighborhood, and then all of a sudden, there's like 5 families with Saint Bernards. It's like, where did this come from?
That's great. Yeah, I'd never had small dogs. So, I grew up, on ranches. We had ranch dogs. And, when I married my husband, his aunt said, oh, I want to give you a Yorkie. And I'm thinking, oh, I don't want a Yorkie. They're small and they yap, and I don't want that. And, here we are living the dream years later with Yorkies. And now I've joined her in the breeding program. But yeah, I think dogs are very healing. So I'm glad that I have these guys in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Dogs are so incredible. You're talking about your son and his seizure disorder. I know a woman who has an Akita, who is her service dog, that lets her know when she's going to have a seizure. And that blows my mind, that you can get the best neurologist in the world and a team of doctors and all sorts of equipment, and they can't sit down and tell you when a seizure is coming. But somehow this Akita can tell my friend and keep her safe.
That's amazing. Yeah, Percy is trained for Ryan. Mm-hmm. And, I said she's a bit of a live wire, but when it comes time, when it's getting close to having a seizure, she just comes very quietly, and she'll lay on his feet or get up in his lap and just lay there. And I think it was this past January, he had a very large seizure where we had to call the ambulance to come help us. But both Monkey and Percy were on either side of his head, just laying on the ground. And I told my husband, you got to pick them up and get them out of here, and they didn't want to leave Ryan. Mm-hmm. So, I just think that animals have this amazing ability, they're healing and comforting, and they know, they have that sense, mm-hmm. And I think it's a true blessing that your friend has her Akita, and that people have these service dogs, because they really do provide a service. And I don't know what I would do without them for Ryan.
Yeah. Now I know, here in Massachusetts, I don't know if you can breed dogs anymore. I know there are no pet stores where you can buy a dog in Massachusetts anymore. So I know there's people out there going, shouldn't be breeding dogs. We have all these dogs and all. What would you say to that? Very, very good intended person.
Well, I think that everybody has a choice if they want to choose a reputable breeder to buy from, or if they want to go to a shelter. I've done both. Mm-hmm. And yes, we do have a lot of dogs, but also when you go to a shelter, you may not know the health history of that dog or where its story began. And some of that can be very scary for, if you have small children, you bring a big dog into the house or something. And so I think that if they do their research and get to know who they're talking to on the other end, that you can find a lifelong friendship and support with a breeder. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like to offer too. I mean, we have clients that come back year after year. So it's
Yeah.
been rewarding for us.
Good for you. Good for you. And
Thank you.
so you mentioned the fact that there's no poop fairy. So you are very, very busy caring for the dogs and picking up the poop. Where'd you find time to become an author?
It's always been really important to me to. My mother is a English professor, so it's been ingrained in me. The foundation has always been there. And I've always been able to express myself with words far better than just sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. I feel like I stumble over what I'm trying to say. So if I can write it down, that's great for me. So, Oklahoma summers are extremely hot and winters are very cold. Not as cold as Boston, I'm sure, but I do a lot in the evenings, and I have notebooks everywhere, so I just come up with an idea and I'll jot it down and I work on it, and I can pretty much throw them out pretty quickly once I get my mind set. So that's been fun.
Now, do you have a technique? Do you start with what if to start a story, or does it just come into your head?
I think a little of both. I want a story that has some substance to it. So, like the special strength, I have one, Noble the Choppy King, it's a mission of love. And then I have one that's for older children and adults. That's the Chronicles of Monkey Mae and Percy. And it just, a lot of them are based on humor. And it just ties into the story, a way for people to laugh, but also accept what's going on. There's, so I don't know. It's kind of just always been there. It just kind of flows out.
Yeah. Must have been pretty exciting when you got your very first book, the author copy of your very first book in your hand.
It was exciting. I think I stood there in disbelief for a while, and my husband was saying, I knew you could do it, and I said, well, I knew I could too. I just didn't know that it would mean so much to me to actually do it. So it's been really rewarding.
Do you have a work in progress right now?
I do. And it is about just another inclusion book of families coming together. So where some families aren't biological, it's just kind of going along that aspect that, it doesn't need to be, we don't all need to look the same. What matters is it's from the heart.
Absolutely. Our family is big, but it's become bigger through the people that we chose to include in our family.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Monkey Mae, Noble, and Percy's Farm of Strengths. Find out more about your other books and also find out about your dogs.
Okay, so all of my books right now are available on Amazon. They can be found by searching my name, Jane Lumen, and Monkey Mae. And Monkey Mae is M-A-E. And also I share updates and behind the scenes on my personal Facebook page. So that's always fun to check out and follow along.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Monkey Mae, Noble, and Percy's Farm of Strengths. Our guest has been Jane Lumen, and we didn't get the tornado warning.
We didn't. We made it out all right.
Jane, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. As always, if this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on X, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Tim Wright. Please be sure to check out Revenge of the Riverhome Rutabagas. It's book 5 of the Adventures of Toby Baxter series. It is a certified great read, as all of the great Toby Baxter books are. Also want to thank Jane Lumen. Please be sure to check out Monkey Mae. I want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Daleen Rose, Advina Lopez, Ella Badier. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.